Okay. All right. So just now added a link. Since this monitor is too small or cramped or whatever, added a link for YouTube streaming. Take a look at the Photoshop. But if you have yours up, it should be pretty simple to follow along as well.
Are you live streaming this too?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I can go back and like look at it later, or
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be up later too.
okay. I see the. I'm in Outlook right now, and I see. Wait, which one is it? The assignment 02 sample.
So try the first one with all three, and I think there was another one where I did an email for each image there.
So I would click on one and download, or
We'll look for the chair one, the blue chair. That's what we're starting
That should
with.
be the first one. It should say 01 on it.
Yeah. Assignment 2, sample 1. .dng. Okay, cool. So usually, whenever you open up a raw image, dng.raw, there's a few other ones I forget, but in Photoshop, it'll take you to the camera raw filter automatically before even making any layers and whatnot. Whole separate window, whole separate processing. It also has, it's kind of a third-party program. It's also present in Lightbox, if anybody's familiar with that. But for here, this is how you make raw footage just professional. That's how you clean it up. And so the process is, first we want to do color balance. And that involves messing with the exposure and the contrast first. So we'll quick run down the layout here. So once you have your camera raw up, you can see your image right in the middle here. You got your options to the right. At the bottom, you have your view states. So it's the bottom right corner. Right before you get to the settings, you can see a square and then a grayed out split square there. So if you hit the solid square there, that's how you change your looks. So you can get a couple of arrangements for before and after. And you got your split, you got your half and half, you got the up down before after. If you keep clicking that would, hey, what's up?
oh, I'm sorry. I just pulled it up and it said camera raw 12.0. That's just, is that it?
Yeah, so just say right click and open with Photoshop. It'll take you right to it.
Wait, right click on the photo.
Yeah.
I see default white, light gray, medium gray.
Default light.
Hold up. Enhanced details.
Okay, no, you got it up. Okay, so yeah, I'm just going over part down here. Yeah, so cycle through the views there. Part one.
So it has wide open, the cycle between. Oh, there it is, like that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You can keep clicking on them, you can get different arrangements of the before and after, and eventually you get back to just the final pictorial result.
Which one did you do that?
Which one? Which layout?
Yeah.
No, it's just cycle and go. It's up to you, but I'm just going to use the
Where's it?
final. Right there, the solid square.
This? Oh, this.
Awesome. Okay, so use that as need be. I'm just going to use the final look here. All right, and before we start diving into this the settings here, we always want to take a look at the information behind the image. So in the center, down at the bottom, you see some information that's underlined. Default, it says Adobe RGB 1998, 8-bit, etc., etc. Everybody see that? Okay, awesome. Click on that. It'll take you to settings. The very bottom. Very bottom, yeah.
Well,
See, it says camera preferences. It's a window that pops up after you click it.
Put what the,
The word. So the underlined, not word, but underlined information statement at the very bottom.
Adobe RGB.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
put that.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, I see. And then workflow options.
Exactly. So just to go through here, so we'll start with color space here. And once you hit the drop box next to space, there's a lot of options here. Depending on your equipment and stuff, you can go ahead and set up a couple of presets. But there's only three that we're going to mess with, and primarily just one, which is the default Adobe RGB 1998. It's default. All the pictures come through. It's sort of like a mid-range, where there's not too much information, but not too much loss of detail. The high-end one would be your Pro Photo RGB. It has the most information, but also it logs down your computer, your CPU, pretty heavily. So that's only for the photographers, pretty much, going for that very high-end result. And then, but right beneath Pro Photo, we have the sRGB, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the web version, right? It's usually for sprucing up photos that you're gonna post online and leave online. It's not for download, it's not for print, that sort of thing. Pro Photo is for print, and Adobe RGB is more of the experimental testing, and seeing what you want to do with the photo. So let's leave it at Adobe RGB. All right, and then our depth. If you hit that drop box, we have the 8 bits per channel and the 16 bits. As you can imagine, 16 bits is more information. You get more colors out of it. You get more better gradients. And then the 8 bits is pretty much standard. So we're going to mess with the 8 bits for now. All right, down to image sizing. I want to make sure our resolution's at 300. That's pretty default. It can go as high as 600. Anything after that is just for crazy large prints, right? And then at the very bottom, after we skip output sharpening, down here at Photoshop, let's go ahead and check that box that says open in Photoshop as smart objects. That's so if we ever exit out of this, we can go back in and make any adjustments that we need to make. All right, so once you have those settings in place, let's go ahead and hit OK. And then we'll get started editing. All right, so one of the things, as you can imagine, is very key here is the histogram at the very top here. It shows all your colors, the overlapping colors. From here, you can get an idea of what kind of what kind of white balance you're going for, and you can also tell by the graph if you're losing more information than ideal. All right, so underneath that, we'll start with our Basics tab. All right, and right underneath that, we have white balance. Let's make sure that is on as shot. Sometimes that skips around depending on some presets in the raw footage. As shot means just the way the camera has shot it. Nothing special about it. Right underneath that, we have our temperature. All right, I believe somebody was talking about Kelvin degrees before. Looked into it. It's pretty useful, actually. So, yeah. So, like, if you're not familiar about it, it is pretty much determining the color of the light depending on the temperature of the light in Kelvin. So, like, daylight is kind of a blue, white, cyan. Candlelight's more of a red, orange. There's a scale online, but we're going to eyeball everything here. It's
And we should show the actual like scale and the images and then like examples. So I think the like a computer screen monitor light is
Mhm.
I think it was 6400 or no, not 6400, 64,000 or something like that.
yeah, it's on the high end, right?
Yeah.
Towards white. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean that's useful. It's useful. If you're ever wondering what kind of light you want to place in this, but we're going to use our artistic eye to sort of eyeball this. What kind of light should be in this? Because eventually we're going to get to the point around final time where we're turning daylight photos into or daylight footage into night footage and vice versa. All right, so with temperature, you can bring it either to the warm side or the cool side. Right now, we're just trying to grab our whites, right? We're trying to color correct it. So you can eyeball the image, right? You want to take a look at something that should be white in the image. Keep an eye on that part. Also, keep an eye on your histogram. So as we move to temperature, what we want to do is we want to try to line up the high peaks of all the color, the different color graphs in the histogram so that they're even. They're on the same level there. So with my temperature, I find it is pretty good at 4900 here. All right, and right underneath that, I'm going to adjust the tint a little bit and try to line up those high peaks to get more white, more of a white correction coming through. So it looks like -10. It's pretty much as close as it gets for me. All right, and then from there we want to adjust our exposure, make sure we're not losing any information. We can tell that we're losing information by how much, and how much on the right side, how much color that we're losing on the right side of the histogram. So the higher that last pixel on the histogram, the higher that point is, the more information that's just getting blown out, right? So we use our exposure to either lower it or higher it as needed. So I'll move mine down to about -0.4. So get
the exposure part, right?
yeah. And then contrast on down is more finagling, finessing. So when you use contrast, always bump that up a little bit. Always helps. Get a little more out of the ambient occlusion. My highlights, I'm going to bring that down because I'm still losing information according to my histogram. So I'm going to bring that down just a bit. Alright, and then my shadows, which are the blacks, the darks. On my histogram, there's a huge bar at the very left side. So I want to bring that down using my shadows. Alright, I'm pulling a lot of information towards the center here. Okay, so
Are you trying to make sure that line you see in between the before and after is like barely visible, or do you know what I'm talking about?
no. So before and after shows the changes you're making, right? So the original photo and then the after photo. So I'm just on the, I can show a little bit of it. I can't show all of it. I'm just on the final image. I'm doing everything at once.
Oh, okay.
All right, and then if you can see, this is what my histogram looks like right now. So my blacks are pretty minimal. All right, not losing a lot of information in our darks. The whites are really minimal here. Not losing a lot of information there either. All right, so shadows at +86. It's pretty high. All right, adjust my whites just a little bit to see if I can get a little more detail at the top there. So -26 for whites. Then boost the blacks up a little more, +16. So my histogram is at this point right here. Now once the histogram looks good, take a closer look at the image. We want to make sure we can still make out everything. We're not losing anything. Nothing looks weird or discolored. I'm going to go ahead and bump up the exposure just a little bit now. Since this is more of a daylight scene, I'm going to want some more whites in there. So about plus 0.5 now
On which part?
on exposure.
0.05.
0.05, yeah.
Negative or the plus?
Plus.
Plus.
Yeah. All right, we're looking pretty good. The best way to tell is that if we're there taking the photo, right? We want the photo to look like the same way we see it in real life. And since this is just a sample image, you want something that's pretty clear, believable, and then not too off-putting. All right, and then furthermore, we have our texture, we have a clarity, dehaze, minor things that don't really apply here. You can always add a little bit of texture, a little bit of clarity. I'm not, because I'm going for a naturalistic look, but in other aesthetics, such as like film noir or comic book type of aesthetics, you want to bump up the texture, clarity. Dehaze is for that floodlight. You get light coming through the lens from everywhere. You have an option to lower that. Vibrance, not really useful here, not really useful anywhere, to be honest. It's just adjusting the brightness. And then also your saturation. It's always nice to bump that up a little bit. So I'm going to add about plus 7 saturation here. And so the projector doesn't do it justice, but this is where I'm at. Image-wise, this is where I'm at histogram-wise. All right. Now, no, I'm not losing any information on the whites or the blacks. I see everything. I like everything. I like the way the color is setting up. It looks really picturesque, like it just took the photo. That's good. So you can consider that color corrected. So after we got that done in there, which is, again, the contrast, exposure, and then saturation, basically, then we want to move to our color grading. So let's close out the basic tab. Let's move down into the curve tab. Now, Cameron, your version is a little different. Do you have a curve tab in there?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, awesome.
Curve tab?
Yeah, right underneath the basic. So,
I see basic and then like the treatment color black and white. I'm not sure.
yeah, so once you close the basic tab, right, you hit that drop arrow next to basic. There's curve right underneath that.
I'll have it drop.
It's not there.
We got tone curve and then detail.
Oh, okay, so do the tab up here.
Oh,
So, like, the basic curve, detail, color mixer,
oh, okay. So right there is all of these. But
yeah,
they're not
that's, that is like 2020.
Oh,
Yeah. So those are your curves. Color grading is going to get kind of weird. I think so. They included color wheels in 2021, but I think they still have sliders on 2020. But we'll get to that in a couple of minutes.
Oh, yours updated 2021?
Yeah.
Okay, so our, okay, so this
Okay, so in curves, this is where we start beginning our color grading. So with other assignments, we're going to do a little more research, a couple of mood boards on what angle we want to go with. But for right now, let's go ahead and give this sort of a high key look. So high key looks are, if you've seen like any romantic comedy in the daytime, a lot of commercials have it, like Mr. Clean commercials, that sort of thing. You get this bright noonday look with a good bit of saturation. So we want to put that in there starting with curves here. So underneath curve, we have our adjust bar here. Right now it has everything selected. We don't want to mess with that because we want a certain angle, we want a certain direction out of it. So we're going to start moving with individual channels. And we'll start with the luminance channel, which is right next to, it says parametric curve, but hey, what's cracking, man? You ready?
Oh yeah, we don't start till 3:30.
Yeah? Okay, dope. I'll be done, man. All right, so 10 minutes, guys. So let's hit that tab right next to adjust curve. It says parametric curve, but it's overall curve. Right next to there, then we can start adjusting the light. So what I'm going to do is, it's just a default way of going about it. It's easier to control everything. But mainly what we want to do is we usually work with S-curves, right? Anything more advanced than that is more on experience and using our artistic eye. But I'm going to start with an S-curve, and for that, we're going to put a dot right in the middle here.
I thought you told us to click the parametric curve.
Oh, next to that.
Okay,
Next to that.
Okay.
Oh, I got a point on mine.
Right here, yeah, point. So, you doing all right, man? Yeah, I'm doing
at the same time?
no, it's 2 to 3:15. I got a late start, yeah, but we'll get going here, man. Cool, appreciate it. So I'm starting in the middle here, all right? So the upper end of the curve is our higher values here. This is how we adjust, I guess values. You can call them values. That's how we adjust the values in the higher end of our spectrum. So I'm going to place a point right there in the halfway point between our midpoint and end point.
So right in that square, the corner is right there.
Right about there, yeah. I'm going to go ahead and bump this up a little bit. Raise it up, not too crazy. Take a look at a histogram, making sure I'm not losing values in the end here. All right, come down here and adjust our lower values. Or just the values in the lower spectrum. Bring it down just a bit. And again, looking not to lose too much information here. Now we can always go back and grab this information, but since we're going the more aesthetic route, we may not want all those details, right? That's just for color correction. Color grading is a whole separate approach here. All right, so now it already looks a little brighter, right? We got this a more stronger sun ray coming through. All right. And then I'm going to hit my red right here. And so with the high Q look, we're looking for a little more saturation here and there. And also, it usually goes for like a warm look. Since we got a lot of blue in here, I'm gonna stick with that and keep with the blue. So I'm gonna lower some of the reds and the highlights, right? So I'm gonna take some of the red out of the highlights and leave them in the shadows here.
Is the all lines that have like curve and custom, curve and then channel, and then I click the drop box on channel and they have like RGB, red, green, blue. You took red.
Yeah, let's start with red. All right, so again, I'm going to maintain the midtones. Right, come up here to the higher values and take out a little bit of red from the highlights. Come down here and add a little bit of red to the lower values. All right, then with green, I'm gonna leave it as is. And then with blue, as you can imagine, we're going to add more to the highlights. So hit a point here, raise it up just a bit. And then I'm actually going to leave the lower values alone. They'll sort themselves out. Okay, so any questions so far?
Okay, so with the blue, green, and red tab, does it adjust like the color tone of the image, or does it like, what does it do?
So in curves, so like everything adjusts the color tone, right? But in curves, we're talking about more of a fluid way of adjusting the color, right? So there's higher values that we can add red or take red, add blue, take blue, etc. Right? Or we can just do luminance, which is just overall brightness, right? So when we do an S curve, let's see, bring it back up. So when we do S curve, we're adding values to the, we're adding more values to higher colors, the brighter colors, right? And then down here, we're taking away color from the lower values here.
Okay, so you're taking away, I get the higher value part from the sunlight.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom part, you're taking away the color, some of the color on the bottom, or?
Right, for the darker shades.
Oh.
Yeah, so if you're familiar with shades and tint, so this part messes more with the tint as far as the lighter values. This is more with the shades. Okay, so we'll pick this back up next week. Pay attention to the Google Classroom. We'll give you updates along with the open book quiz and then with the other photos.
Do you want to play this with like John and say?
Actually, don't. We're going to start all over.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just going to run through it again. Yeah. Oh, no, we're going to run through it again. Okay. Any more questions, concerns?
Was he the guy that you were talking
Yeah, that's him. That's him. Yeah.
So do we have? So we don't have like. Do we have any homework that is like Monday?
Read the history section of the textbook.
Okay.
Yeah, it's about 67 pages. It's about an hour read.